what's happened is it's snowballed into like a network of people, into a movement, so to speak. I kind of jumped in at the right time, and it's completely different than what I thought it would be. I didn't think that making content like this would kind of develop a whole movement.
Pedogate has to do with the instances of pedophilia and child trafficking that are involved in numerous individual stories. And the idea of Pedogate, or hashtag Pedogate, is kind of used as in my view, a coordinator for people that are researching to stay within a coordinated subject of the research. But Pedogate's important because there is this culture that we keep seeing in this country that seems to sexualize children more and more and more, moving towards that nature of things, moving away from the age of consent. And you see it every day happening again and again. And in our past, Pedogate would have a lot to do with organizations that were formed in the 90s, like NAMBLA. That all has to do with Pedogate. The fact that we're normalizing this all.
So 25 people work at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and they get 2 million to 4 million reports of missing children, sexually exploited children, videos. They have 25 people leafing through that, and their success rate is literally 3%. And they tout themselves as this like great agency that is doing a great service for our children, when in fact they're really not.
Hey everybody, and we're back, and of course we are with that notorious famous Honeybee. I am so excited to share our show with you, Honeybee. When you actually sit down and you're able to talk with somebody and chat like this, it's fun, and it's really gives us an opportunity, and of course our viewers, to get to know you on a little bit more of a personal level. And I just can't even imagine the type of research that goes in to what you're doing. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got led into the investigating part of this?
Sure. Do we want to go way back, or?
I'd love to go way back. Let's take us all back. There had to be some point in your childhood where you said, geez, I'm going to be a reporter. I'm going to investigate in this, or I want to be a writer, or something must have.
Sure. So I was very blessed growing up. I grew up north of Boston with my family, my brother, my sister, and my mom and dad. And I was always kind of like the really off the beaten path, the kind of black sheep of the family, not in a bad way, but just very curious, very outspoken, very comfortable. I was like in theater and very comfortable speaking in front of people. So that kind of helps me now in my, making videos and talking to people. In high school, I had a teacher that he really opened up my mind. He ended up being fired, unfortunately. He was very unorthodox. He had lots of couches in the room. He burned incense. We talked about the nouveau riche. We talked about first-class corporations and their effect on the world and how they sway governments and things like that. And I was only 15, maybe 14, 15 years old, learning about this stuff, and it really impacted me. Because I was so curious and wanted to know everything about everything, it kind of threw me for a loop. And I had a couple of hard years because of this information. I was like, I can't believe this is all happening. So of course I'm talking to my parents every day about it. I'm up all night, wondering what's going on in the world. And it was very intense. And it wasn't until I got out of high school, I was able to travel a little bit. I met a lot of people throughout the Europe area. I went out and backpacked Europe for a while with a few friends, and took some courses and got into college. And I was the newspaper editor for a school and I just kind of developed this research knack. I was always thirsty for information, but actually putting it down so people could read it was something I found. I'm like, I could really get into this. So I did that for about a year and a half, and I became the news editor of the newspaper. So everything kind of went through me, and I also was doing the front page articles of our school newspaper. So I have a little bit of that experience in presenting information, but the truth part of the stuff happened a little bit after that. So I got kind of into YouTube, the YouTube rabbit hole that people talk about. Around 2007 through 2008, I kind of was like hooked. So I was watching videos about ghosts and aliens and the supernatural stuff. I was really into. And then it started getting a little darker. I was raised to either follow my heart with religion or learn as much as you want about it. I mean, I wasn't pushed into Christianity or anything like that. So I started off at a Catholic school, and then I wanted to try Protestant school, and then I went to the Eastern philosophy route, and I wanted to be a Buddhist, and I kind of let myself discover religion in that sense. But when I started getting into demonology, that's when I really started becoming more faithful in my Christian beliefs.
Yeah, you need that.
Yeah, the evil was kind of leading me to understand that if the evil is so real, your mind is kind of like, okay, well then the good spiritual part of this must be real too. And it empowered me a lot to start really doing research that will change the world and will help wake people up to the unfortunate, horrible realities that we have in this world, but also ways to combat it. And I became like an activist, especially politically. I was going to DC. I was, setting up groups where we would, come together and talk about the world, talk about issues, what we could do to like change the world and be better people. So that's kind of like my little road to activism and sharing information. I didn't know it was going to go this far, especially with how bad it actually is. So.
Would you have done it any other way?
Absolutely not. I would have probably made a little bit more money and not have traveled so much. But, that again, I wouldn't change that either.
So tell us about your first video. What was it? And do you look back on it now and you can see how much you've grown?
Yeah. Well, the actual first video isn't visible on YouTube because I had made a video about 3 years ago, and it was concerning Sandy Hook. There was a fire in New Jersey, maybe it was in New York. It was a Hasidic Jewish man, and his wife and his daughter were the only survivors of this really bad fire that took 7 of his children. It was kind of a big deal. I found out a lot of information about this man, that his family was connected to the Rothschild family. And I was studying a lot about Sandy Hook. And then I had a friend that same weekend perish in a fire. And I had this crazy dream about all of this stuff. So I made a video about that.
Wow.
I did not verify my account. The video was like 25, 30 minutes long. So the video never uploaded. And there's just a little thumbnail that I can only see on my computer addressing this issue. And it was like my first spark of like, wow, people need to know this crazy information. I don't think people are really talking about it. And then after that, people started kind of looking into it, thankfully. My second video, which is what you folks can see when you're, come on, honey. I have a lizard who's scraping against the window.
We like lizards. I live in Florida. We like them.
Yeah, we have an awesome little lizard guy.
They eat my bugs. It's good.
So my second video is actually a video saying this will be my only video I ever make.
This is probably the only video I'll ever make.
I looked at what these guys get for money through YouTube. Using fear, using, religious, spiritual, governmental, metaphysical, anything you could imagine to amp people up. They use this in their product, in their YouTube products, and they get millions of views a week. And because they're on YouTube and they are actual network channels users and they are, involved in advertising with them, they make like $300,000 a week. And I'm not even joking. Like, if you go to socialblade.com/YouTube/ put the username, put in AMTV, put in PewDiePie, they're making thousands and thousands of dollars a day.
And be careful on YouTube. Be careful what people are telling you. Sometimes people are going to try to sway you with their misinformation. And I'm just telling you, do your own research. That was my second video, which is the only video that you can see. That's my first video. But I thought it was kind of interesting that was my first video on YouTube, and it kind of grew into this crazy subscriber list and lots of people connecting and doing some amazing stuff.
So I think when we think about Mad Deep, I'm going to go into some of the corruption. And do you believe that a majority of the corruption in our government stems from pedogate cover-ups? I know that's kind of a deep, roundabout way of really getting into it, but
I believe that there is a problem with this pedophilia affecting our world as we don't see it, because we don't see how pedophilia works. It is a huge business of trafficking children, using them for sexual endeavors, whether they're infants to 14 years old. We saw it with Jeff Epstein in his Lolita flights in his island, to Dennis Hastert, who is molesting young boys, prostitutes and whatnot, forced into prostitution. Just by looking at some of these cases, you are only led to understand and believe, not know for fact, that there is some sort of secret thing going on above our heads. So the little bits of information that we find, through the human trafficking that goes on in Asia, we can see reports of that and things going on like that. We have the human trafficking report that just came out that focuses on every single other country in the world except what's going on in America. And we have all of these arrests and they're promising names and we never see them. Who are these people? Why is this such an issue right now? And why don't they want to talk about it? And I really do believe it's because to be in power and to be in government, you have to be involved in this sort of sick, whether it's for blackmail or if it's for, trust reasons. They want to know that they can trust you and you have to be like sort of part of the club. I don't think you can be in Hollywood, government, high levels of military, or the music industry, unless you kind of are vetted in that sense. And then I think because it's so perverse and put in your face, I believe they have parties and I believe this is like a way of life for them. It becomes sort of like your thing. And I absolutely do believe it is one of the biggest parts of the corruption in this country, the silence in this country. The reason that we have these little agencies that are non-governmental, like the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, they're not government agencies. They're little private agencies that get funding from the government, but yet they have, ultimate authority to decide whether the picture or the video that they've received is, you know, something that's imminent, then that they need to deal with, or if it just goes into the data bank. That kind of control over, you know, missing children or children that are being sexually exploited and abused, I just feel like a staff of 25 people that are non-government, non-law enforcement should actually be able to have all that kind of control over our children. There are millions of people in this country, and there's a staff of 25 worrying about every single missing child and every horrible image they find on the internet of child pornography. It's just, to me, that kind of compartmentalization should just show you that there's a problem, and it's almost like nobody cares about the missing kids.
Yeah, right. You know, when I even think of you, Honeybee, as a reporter and being able to have such a passion, but you almost wonder, is that something that has propelled you to go into it as deep as you've gone into it? A lot of people will skirt a lot of these issues, but not you, Honeybee. You want to be in the thick of it. It's like a, you know, it's like a honeybee. You got to be in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Is that it? Are you comfortable? Is that something on a level we can talk about? Is that something that's caused you to want to go so deep?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, I'm an 80s kid, so I grew up in the satanic sexual abuse panic, as people were calling it. Also, pedophile panic. In the 80s, you know, I remember my parents and my friends' parents and my cousins and things like that. They were trying to talk to us and asking us, like, has anyone ever touched you? Please let us know. I mean, I got books, like little story books, to, like, you know, pose the question, like, has anyone ever touched you? And if they have, please tell us, or tell us an adult, tell the policeman. You know, I grew up in kind of a rowdy neighborhood growing up in Revere until I was about 14 years old, and then we moved to a little norther of Boston. But there were lots of older boys on our street, and it you know, it was a little uncomfortable at times being a young girl. Conversations were sexually charged. We were able to watch movies that we couldn't watch at home at their homes, you know what I'm saying, with their parents there. It was in Revere, so it was very, you know, open. Parents let their kids out, you know, 8 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night, no problem. We didn't worry about that stuff, except for when this panic came. Everybody wanted to make sure that their kids weren't being molested. And then we had the McMartin preschool, which was all over the news.
In what may become one of the biggest child molesting cases ever on record, 7 nursery school teachers were arraigned today on more than 100 counts of child molestation.
The accused include the preschool owner, 76-year-old Virginia McMartin, her daughter, and 2 grandchildren.
Finding out just what happened to the McMartin preschoolers in Manhattan Beach, California, would spark a national media obsession.
A case which has shocked much of Southern California and caused a lot of parents to worry about the safety of their children.
Setting off a panic around the country.
In alarming numbers, preschoolers have been exploited.
Could it be your child?
Those children, some of them as young as 2 years old, were photographed by the suspects.
Kiddie porn was the primary purpose for the alleged sexual abuse of children.
Some children allege that a living creature was sacrificed on the church's altar.
The truth about Satanism is they truly do use blood, and they mix it with urine, and then they also use the real meat, the real flesh. This is what makes Satanism true, and this is what 1,200 molested kids in the city of Manhattan Beach have told the sheriff's department.
Using puppets to encourage the children to reveal what happened, the therapists were able to unlock the horrible secrets of the McMartin school.
Virginia McMartin, her daughter, 2 grandchildren, and 3 other teachers were ultimately indicted on more than 300 counts of molestation.
2 South Bay preschools.
It wasn't long before accusations of abuse were being reported at 7 other daycare centers in LA County alone.
Investigators were at the Hickory Preschool in Torrance earlier today.
And then fear spread across the country.
Everyone was insane about it. And I think it was for good reason. I mean, I'm glad that at that age, my parents were in tune with that and felt comfortable talking to me about that, so I could be honest if anything had ever happened. I also, have very close friends in my life that have been raped, abused by their parents or a person in their family. I've seen people, want to take their own lives because of things like that. So it does hit me on a personal level. But also I'm kind of like I love the world, and I love I want everyone to be happy. I want to help everybody I can. I love kids. I think they're so important to the future. I worked with children my whole life. I just feel if they're not helped, and if we don't focus on our future in that sense, then we're not doing the right thing. I mean, if you don't stand up for your kids, you don't stand for anything, as far as I'm concerned. So, personally, I feel that if you're not at least concerned about this, then, you better wake up fast. And because it's going to take all of us to start really exposing what's going on, because, the mainstream media is not touching any of this. You see one little news blip about, a sheriff or a district attorney being arrested, and then you never hear anything else about it. So, unless there's 7 million of us standing up and demanding some answers, then, we're still going to be doing these little interviews and being called conspiracy theorists, unfortunately. So,
out of what you've uncovered, what troubles you the most? Or what fears do you have?
Oh, I've seen such disturbing stuff. I think it's I think there's two things that really disturb me. One of the websites that I got taken down, called tribe.com, there was a chat in there called No Limits, and the brutality and violence and torture that was fantasized about on infants and babies, it really hit me to the core. So this is tribe.net. You look here on the face of this, you're looking at dates back in 2003, 2005. I see a 2013 here. Still, that's 5 years old. But don't let that fool you, because this site is absolutely still active, especially when you go to the No Limits Twisted Men tribe chat. No limits. How sick and twisted are you? So here on the left-hand side, we have the profile picture of Satan and an upside-down pentagram on fire. And this is a tribe for the suckest and twisted sexual fiends out there to meet up and share interests and more. So here we are. These are topics of discussion, and they are pretty recent, guys. This is March 24th, 2017. That was just 4 days ago. So this is very alive and well. Sadistic pedo, newborn snuff, pedo school, snuff chat, young boys club, inbred incest scat, other pedos for chat. I was like not the same after reading some of those posts. And these are posts that are made by anonymous people, and they're given these platforms to sort of talk about these desires. There were some back page ads included in that. And as you know, Backpage is like in court right now because of young girls being put in their ads and being prostituted. So seeing this torture of babies and children sort of highlighted and promoted, and finding out that actually it was Mark Pincus, the creator of Zynga, who created Farmville, who created all the Zynga game apps, knowing that he was actually the one that created that website, it really disturbed me. That was like a big find for me to see how it is connected that way.
And you put such faith in these things. I mean, these are games for all ages are having fun with it. And here there's somebody so twisted, perverted behind that.
I mean, I believe it goes even further than that. You know, Tracy's story, Tracy is the one that I had to reveal. My Emma videos that she had asked me to take down. I don't know if you guys were going to get into that, but she had asked me to take the videos down because some people were starting to find out who she was.
Oh boy.
She's terrified of the backlash from this man. He's ruthless. And, you know, we're working on another version, maybe putting out, and I have the Hagman and the Hagman report, PI, also Craig Sawyer. They're kind of taking a look at it for me as well, to kind of see what they can find with their resources. So, but the connections that I'm finding with, you know, the music industry, Hollywood, and certain buzzwords that are connecting to child pornography and porn sites on the Internet Archive. You know, we're not going to live active sites. We're kind of looking back to where this time frame was for her, and it's leading us to, you know, BuzzFeed images that are questionable, weird things that are embedded in the images that, you know, are leading to child pornography, links and things like that. The hardest part is connecting actual people, like locations, like IP addresses, because of dark web and poor technology. It's really hard unless you're a hacker to get in there. I'm not a hacker. I've never gone into the dark web. And I don't suggest that you do unless you have a friend who is very good at it with you, helping you protect your computer.
Yeah, I have read about it, and I know there's a lot of things going on with it right now, that it has been taken down, a lot of things happening. Maybe you can bring us up with that.
Yeah, sure. So the dark web, I think it gets a bad rap on one level. This is where we find all of the crimes. We find a lot of child pornography, weapons, drugs, trafficking, and whatnot. But on the other end of it, it gives the white hat hackers, the good people, a chance to uncover and find these bad people. The dark web in and of itself is a place of pure, unadulterated, anonymous, you know, connection. You are able to really, truly be anonymous. And that's anonymous from the governments. So it is very important that we have this thing to utilize in our, you know, in our freedom and exercising our freedom, because they're watching us every turn. They're listening to our tape right now. You know, they have televisions that are newer now. They're listening to your conversations. This is all in Vault 7 technology. This is a lot of what Tracy was dealing with as well from my Emma story. You know, they have buzzes that they can put through your electronics to confuse you and make you feel paranoid. So having the dark web is a secure way to communicate, and we have to protect that. Also, you have these hackers. Now, there are two instances where these groups of anonymous have taken down thousands of pedophile people, like brought their servers down and did DDoS attacks, which blocks all service, and they can't do anything more about it.
Greetings, citizens of the world. We are anonymous. In recent months, Up Death Eaters has shown the number of stories all over the world involving institutional pedocidism, child rape, torture, abduction, and even murder, including extensive child trafficking networks, have been covered up by those who are meant to protect. They have failed the position we gave them. They have abused the privilege and power we allowed them and used it against our children. We will fight for those you have silenced. We demand independent inquiries intended by the corrupt, with full power to investigate. We demand an end to secrecy. The deaths of Leon Britton, Cyril Smith and Jimmy Savile in the UK allowed them to escape persecution. leaving their victims with no justice and the investigations with lost opportunities. They escaped accountability for their actions. Others will not be so lucky. David Cameron, you recently attended the We Protect Children Online Global Summit. You mentioned working with GCHQ and other international bodies to tackle child abuse online. Who are you really trying to protect? If only you were as passionate or willing to listen to the countless allegations of child abuse and cover-ups within your government. However, as you have gone so far as to call child abuse victims conspiracy theorists, we question your real motives. These are not just crimes of child rape. This is torture and murder. These are not child lovers. They are Death Eaters. They feed off the pain and suffering of innocent children whose lives they destroy or end to feed their unsparing sadism. The Death Eaters in the UK have their counterparts in every other country and international organization. From Demink in Holland to Epstein in the US. From the UN in Somalia to the Myanmar military incursion. From the ritual killings in Gabon to the disappearances in Mexico, Death Eaters worldwide have been preying on our children. On February 13th, 2015, we will call on all adults with a shred of dignity and moral outrage to join us as we take to the streets. We are the media. We will be silenced no more. We call for justice, and we will bring justice. Operation Death Eaters is fully engaged. We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Death Eaters of the establishment, you should have expected us.
This is stuff that the law enforcement aren't really able to do because of how the dark web is set up. That's why when they got the in on Playpen, they kind of screwed it up as well, because they're not really allowed to use certain types of tactics that are invading our privacy publicly. So when they go into court and like, oh yeah, we just like hacked this password and got in there, they actually aren't supposed to be able to do that. That's illegal. They're not supposed to be able to hack our passwords as, you know, as citizens in this country. So they're actually going to be throwing out that case, I believe, because of that. So I think it's important for people like us who are anonymous and don't have to really play by their rules, and not us as in me. I'm not a hacker. I'm not on the dark web, but like my community, I have people that are doing this that can do it anonymously. They're not looking for any accolades. They're just going in, they're attacking the sites, they're exposing the pedophiles, and then they kind of retreat and they'll let the cards fall. So,
I mean, you have to say thank God for them, because if we're not getting anything on national TV, then it's because of you and what you're doing that makes the difference, and the time that you put into this. Do you have a passion for a particular area? And I hate to say passion because that's probably the wrong word, but do you find one area that you're interested more in than another?
Sure. And you know, I would be fine calling it a passion. A passion is something that you can't, it's almost like undeniable. It's something that you are good at, and it's something that brings you purpose and fills you up. It's also very draining, but it fills me up enough that it equals out the draining part of it. I feel that, you know, working with victims, and this is very recent for me. Before I was just kind of researching, exposing things like that, and I haven't really made a video in quite a little bit, but working with Tracy, working with my State Department friend, Monica, who is also a victim of this, you know, having the child kidnapped by CPS, never see the kid again. You know, I have a gentleman that we're working with as well named Hank, who had his daughter taken away with the mother who is a prostitute online, who believes that they're selling the child. I talk to these people like daily, and it takes up a lot of my time, but I wouldn't want to do anything else other than help them at this point. I'm blessed by the Lord. I have an awesome job where I work a few days a week and I can cover all my bills. I work at a fantastic function hall But we have huge weddings and events, so I only have to work a couple days a week. And then the rest of my week is dedicated to this kind of stuff. So I'm doing my research. I'm speaking with my victims and building their cases. We're trying to share their stories as well as build our documentary that I'm working on with another fellow investigator. But Tracy is really the way that kind of brought me into this. I don't think I would have gone this deep into trying to help victims unless I had this conversation with Tracy a few months back. She really inspired me to want to help people real time and really be there, face to face.
Yeah, I see that. I want to touch on your documentary, but there's a couple more things that I want to get to before we go into that, because I'm super excited about that. Well, let's talk for a minute about Kinsey. And how he has affected 2017 and where we're really at today. It's almost like he opened the Pandora box and said, it's okay. It's all good. And
yeah.
Very frightening.
It's very true. And, the Kinsey experiments and the writings and, using actual convicted serial molesters and pedophiles to build a case that, pedophilia is a sexual orientation. And it's kind of, it's tainted the scientific world, I believe. You have Johns Hopkins University, this is where this stuff is born out of. They've started a group called Before You Act, where they've set up resources for pedophiles to come and admit all of their crimes, but have, legality blocked from bothering them. They use lawyers to kind of
totally freedom.
Yeah. So Frederick Berlin is the creator of Before You Act. If you go to their website, they have a website, you can see that it's a place for minor attracted persons, which is, their MAPS. That's what they call themselves. It is a resource there to find other like-minded, pedophilic people. They want to give you resources on how to not act on your desires. But it also becomes a place for them to be able to organize together and to form these groups, which is why we see groups like Heart Progress and Our Love Frontier, and now even NARSOL and the huge Center for Sexual Justice. I mean, these are little hotbeds of pedophile protectors and promoters. And it is just kind of like from this whole Kinsey perspective that, I was born this way and, my sexual desires should be embraced because, that's what it is for me. And that should make me, just like any other human being. We are humans. And they say that a lot, like we're humans too. You have to still accept us and love us for our sexuality. My argument is that it's not really a sexuality, it's a disorder. It is a mental disorder where you can't differentiate your emotions to look at children sexually, which they're not able to physically be able to have sex. They're not mentally capable of making those kinds of decisions. And for you not to be able to understand that means that you are actually psychotic. Because when you're a psychotic, you make decisions that aren't based on rational thinking, and you keep repeating the same problem over and over again without realizing that you're wrong. Right. So when you have people that are wanting to have sex with children, their brain has not let them mature sexually for some reason. And now they're adults who are supposed to be seeking adult relationships with people. And I'm not talking about the 18-year-olds who want to date 15-year-olds, okay? That is completely different kind of thing, okay? I'm talking about anywhere from 18 to 70 that want to have sexual relationships with kids, children, prepubescent children, like from infant to like 11. That is absolutely a mental disorder. And I don't want anybody to ever be bamboozled by these people, because that, you know, they're really pushing this. They're trying to legislate lowering the age of consent to make this stuff legal. A, so they can do what they want. B, so they can get their hands on your children early. It goes a lot into politics, you know, the communism, the Communist Manifesto, even NAMBLA being involved in those activist groups in our country.
How involved is NAMBLA in all this?
Well, NAMBLA actually was involved in the RWL, which is it's like a post, you know, Occupy, post BAM, post, you know, these liberal activist groups coming out. NAMBLA had a hand in those groups. There was a huge article that was just put out about 3 months ago. Unfortunately, you know, nobody's talking about it anymore, but I look at it all the time. I think it's really important that we see these emails and documents and their posts. NAMBLA posted this stuff on their website, you know, talking about these lawyers, this woman that was involved in BAM. She had worked with this RWL hand in hand with NAMBLA, and they wrote these bylaws on like what they want for children. They want children to have no curfew. They want children to be able to vote. They want children to be able to consent to sex at any age without any parental or guardian interference. If you understand how communism, or even Nazi children, the Nazi youth, Hitler youth, how that works is if you get them young, you can mold their minds, and you have them. You have them. And the state wants your children, whether it's sexually or if it's politically, mentally. They want drones that don't think. They want people to just be reactive to whatever their will is. So that's why NAMBLA, and I believe these activist groups, these left activist groups, were like amazed to find each other. They go hand in hand with the manipulation tactics.
How does George Soros fit into all this? Does he?
Oh, absolutely. So if you know George Soros, you know, he is a major funder in lots of projects, not just Antifa and, you know, DNC stuff and, you know, the liberal left organizations. He funds also the Communist Group of America. There's a big list of all of the organizations that Soros funds. And, you know, not only is he funding one side, but he's funding the other side and everything in between. He's a chess player in all of this. I don't know if you've ever seen Game of Thrones, but he's like the little finger of this whole situation, where I don't think he really has an allegiance to anybody, but if it serves his purpose, you know, if it serves him, he'll invest in this and move things around and do what he wants to do. So all of those people on the left that are blinded by this man, thinking that he like cares about them, they're wrong. He's just doing this to serve his own desires. His, you know, as of late, his funding of groups like Antifa and BAM and things like that, you know, BAM is by any means necessary, and they're the arm of Antifa that, you know, is probably the most violent. They don't care about anything, and they don't really have an allegiance to any cause either. The Antifa group kind of separates themselves from BAM. They're not quite together, but they are an extension, I guess you can say. Like if you're going more extreme, you'd go with BAM. They've been known to just, you know, start throwing rocks and bottles at people's faces, and Antifa does the same, but BAM's their by any means necessary is like their motto, and that's like their one goal is to do that. And I'm saying, so this is a game of, you know, war within our country. You have special interest groups, special funding projects, and it's like Monopoly. It's like, you know, playing some sort of war game. So the only people that are left here to kind of like look around and deal with all these problems and feel helpless is the American people that, you know, are lower to middle class people that are just want a good life for their kids, that are working their everyday jobs and, you know, barely paying their mortgages and their rents and things like that. And we're just looking around. It's like a war scene. And it blows my mind that most of it's funded by the most elite, powerful people in control of our country. It's almost like they want the country to fall, you know, so they can start again and make it whatever they want to make it. I mean, that gets into, you know, the crazy Agenda 21, where depopulation is like this popular thing that they're really trying to, you know, put into action.
You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay. There is a point beyond which they must not advance.
And this is the point I think Americans need to comprehend. If America goes down economically, it will go down militarily. If America goes down militarily, we all go down. The free world is finished, and it'll be finished for a very, very long time.
Everything, practically, is in a self-destructive mode.
We're in the most critical period we've been since the Revolutionary War.
You're not alert, you're not awake with what's happening.
They would just as soon see this country on its knees and everything equalized.
That concept of collectivism, big government, is a magnet for the predator class.
The plans for all this are to have everything globally in place by 2020.
If we're that dumb and we allow this to happen,
we deserve everything we're going to get, because we're going to get it right in the neck.
We're headed into what could be a nightmare that would make all the atrocities of the 20th century look like they were a dress rehearsal.
When people are afraid, they ask government to do more, not less.
Their theories are designed to scare the people to believe there's a crisis when there is not a crisis at all. There's no crisis.
I think we're losing more and more freedom because we are afraid.
Under the new Agenda 21 movement, we've been demoted. We are now below the earth. And if we are less than the earth, then there is no tyranny against man that cannot be justified under the premise of protecting the environment.
If you believe that there's nothing special about man, it can take you all sorts of places.
Unless there is a change in this country, we are going to end up at the end of the line in a totalitarian state.
This is not just a fight for the United States of America. This is a fight for civilization itself.
It's everything Karl Marx dreamed of before our very eyes.
I think they've pushed us over the cliff in ever since. America isn't going to fall. We are falling.
Less people, more money, more land, and we can set up things, the New World Order, the way that we want to without much pushback.
Mm-hmm. Right now, what I hear from you, Honeybee, and what I read and what we've learned here on Mad Deep is all family values have just been shot.
It's very true. The family model is under attack. It's been under attack for a very long time. This whole, individuality and step out from, whatever anybody else thinks. It's all about you. It's all about you. Self-gratification, instant gratification, instant this, instant that. Very egocentric sort of culture. Makeup, hair is so important. All of this stuff. I mean, let's just get into, again, the RWL and NAMBLA and BAM and all of those activist groups that want kids young. And I've made a video about this where they're trying to get your kids young. They even say it like, get the young kids. We want them into our communist understanding. If we get them young, they'll be more faithful and there's no faith actually. That's the wrong word. They'll be motivated by our plans. So this kind of separation from mother and father, and it's not just from the political standpoint, it's also coming from the gender neutralization campaign that is sweeping across the country. There's like a genderless youth movement. You know, I have no issues with consenting adults wanting to have lesbian, gay, whatever kind of relationship that they choose. You're an adult and you can make those decisions, and that is what you do in your life. As long as it's not hurting anybody, I really don't have a problem with it. Do I think you might have to answer to somebody eventually in the future? Most likely. But again, I'm not anyone to judge. I'm one of God's children, and it's not my job. It's my job to help and forgive and to love and do the best I can to follow the path of Jesus Christ. But you know, on this other level where you have people who are, you know, wanting kids to be sex objects, and to separate themselves from their parents, to emancipate themselves from their parents so they can vote, stay out all night, have consenting relationships with adults or other children. This is dangerous territory where the child is left to their own devices. But it's not about freedom. It's about access to children, and I wish people would understand that. It's nothing to do with giving the child freedom. Being a good parent is restricting your child. Being a good parent is setting up consequences and following through with consistency with your child, setting limits and boundaries. That's a good parent. Not letting them just kind of run off in the world to their own devices. You're putting them in danger. You're putting them in harm's way with people that don't have good intentions and that have bad things in store for your children. So this is just such a backwards way. And it's happened so quickly, because when I was growing up, you know, I knew what I could say and not say, and how to be respectful to my elders and my parents. I didn't feel like I was being abused. I didn't feel like I was being held back or restricted. I grew up to be a good person with morals, and you know, I just feel like it's so changed for the worse for our youth, and we have to start standing up and screaming at the top of our lungs to help our kids.
So let's just go a little deeper with Tracy.
Sure. So Tracy contacted me about 2.5 months ago, and she sent me a lot of information in a very short amount of time. It was very overwhelming, and I actually was afraid to touch it a little bit, because she had sent me her PI licenses. She sent me pictures of her children, of her family, and then came her police record, and it was intense. So I noticed that there was an intent with a deadly weapon, endangerment with a deadly weapon, things related to a gun, and you know, speeding, driving, and stuff like that. That's normal stuff. When you see somebody with like an intent to harm with a weapon, a gun, you know, your red flag has to go up, and you have to be a little careful.
Right.
How you continue your conversation. So, you know, before I even looked at any of this stuff, I said, Trace, I just want to let you know, this is intense stuff I'm seeing on your criminal record here. What's going on? And she said, to be honest with you, I had to defend myself against my ex-husband. This is how this all started. And this led me into having to spend time in jail away from my children, where my son was not in school. My ex-husband kept him out of school the whole time I was in jail. He was an elementary school kid. And then when I got back, I discovered the child pornography and bestiality that he had been putting on his computer and producing. He had some members of his little clan that would come in and out of the business that they ran together. And she just put a lot of pieces together. There was a murder on her property. So this is why in the beginning, I didn't say her name. I mean, I called her Emma. And I put out 2 videos about Emma, letting her explain her story. We did a phone call, and I put it out there. I redacted names. It took me forever. I had to cut out little bits of names and people, like her kids and stuff.
But finally we got it out. It went totally insanely viral. Like people are like really, really excited for part 3. And I felt really bad because Tracy asked me to take it down. There were some people that were starting to get really close to her identity and where she lived and the particular business that they ran. And Tracy wasn't ready for that. We're still in an investigative process right now with all the stuff that we've uncovered. We need a case. We want to get this stuff out to authorities, even if they turn it away like they've done 100 times to Tracy. We still want to put it out there so we can say, okay, everybody, here, we're giving it to the police, we're giving it to the FBI, and then nothing happens again. So then we can actually expose all of that information after. I just would feel better if I had tried to give it to the authorities and then was able to really expose it to the folks out there that this is how it all works. You know what I mean? This is why we have to do what we're doing. The reason I came out with Tracy's name was because of one of those pedophile advocacy groups. They found out who Tracy was. I don't know how. They just must have sleuthed, or maybe they have a backdoor into my computer. Who knows? But they found out who Tracy was, and they made this flyer with Tracy's picture and her real name, and saying that she's an attempted murderer, and you can find out more at their webpage. And they sent me this in a text message a half an hour before I was going on a live show with the Hagman report. So I was like frantically freaking out. I called Tracy. I'm like, they know who you are. Like, we got to do something. We got to get in front of this. And, I called John Robertson. He's the producer. I'm like, this whole show is going to be dedicated to this craziness that's happening right now. Like, Heart Progress just threatened to dox Tracy, this woman that I'm trying to fight to get her story heard, but without having her kids getting affected. Like, we don't want our kids getting hurt or her getting hurt. She's been on the run for years.
Oh,
so
I listened to them both. You had me all over this. I was all over this. It's incredibly done.
It's an intense story, and I know people so badly want to hear the whole thing. And I promise.
It's like, I want to know, was her son pulled into this? Was he pulled into all of this?
I'll tell you, he's okay right now. He's safe with some guardians because none of the kids live with either of the parents right now. And CPS is never involved. But Tracy, when she talks to the kids, especially her son often says, if you knew what went on when you were away, when you were incarcerated, you would be really, really upset.
I just felt that way, that he was pulled in. And I personally thought if they had a way of getting anything that this child was exposed to on tape, that would help. That would help her case.
So we're kind of at a standstill with the kids because the kids they still talk to the father, and they are I don't want to say in denial, but they definitely don't like talking about the subject with Tracy.
I'm sure not.
They get really agitated and very distant and, on the defensive. But on the other hand, her son, he will say, like, if you only knew what dad was doing when you weren't here, you would be really, really mad. So, like, his admittance that there's something nefarious going on, but, won't talk about the details, leads me to believe that these kids were threatened. Like every child that's been groomed, or taken advantage of is. You're mentally, it's grounded into your head that if you say anything, you will be killed, your mom will be killed.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's scary.
That's
and when
what
you
they
hear
use.
that your whole life,
that's their tactic. They have nothing else to use but those threats.
That's how it happens, folks. That's how it's so successful. These operations only happen because of the manipulation techniques and the threats that they put in these poor kids.
Honeybee, let's just talk quickly for a minute. What kind of numbers are we looking at? And we have so many different categories. We've got sex trafficking. We've got missing children. Is there a number out there? I know it's increasing constantly. I know that we're at an epidemic. I know that right now. What President Trump has done is just like the tip of the iceberg, but he's helped bring awareness and police authority into the picture, which is a good thing. But what kind of statistics are we looking at?
So there aren't really many good statistics on the actual, you know, missing children or abused children, you know, where those children are. Are they in a home? Are they in foster care? Do you know what I'm saying? They don't really do statistics on that stuff. And I'll tell you, it's because they really don't want you to know how many children are really out there missing. And they're really, if the government, especially, you know, CPS and things like that, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, they are really not, they're not inclined to say that someone's missing, meaning that once a person is actually, a child is actually missing, I mean, they don't put the post up unless they follow a criteria. Most of these kids are runaways. They don't get posters put up. There isn't a missing poster for that, for those 12 kids that were in DC, because they didn't meet a criteria that was set up by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and Amber Alert. You know, the kid has to be gone for a certain amount of time. They have to be under a certain age with no runaways. It's just very hard for there to be immediate action when a child goes missing, because they don't look at it as like every child matters. It's like, well, you know, this kid comes from a broken home and they've run away before, so they're probably just run away. Call us in 3 days. When this child could be in a prostitution ring, you know, on their way to another country. You know what I mean? It's just, it's really poorly handled. The only statistics that I've really seen that speak true, again, very inaccurate, but seem to be most, you know, I feel like they're probably the best, is from the Thorn website, talking about missing children and abused children, and how most of them come from foster care. And they used a percentage from like 50 to 90%, which is very inaccurate, but it makes a lot of sense to me, because CPS and, you know, those organizations that deal with taking kids out of the home, they are the ones that are kidnapping kids through medical kidnap, through taking kids from good homes, putting them into foster situations where the parent is a convicted child molester or a convicted felon. You know, you don't take a good kid out of a good home and put them in a home where there's people that are actual criminals who may or may not have had sexual convictions against children. And that happens a lot. But it's a business. And like we said before, with the human trafficking, the child trafficking, it goes far beyond sex. There's organ harvesting. There's blood transfusions. I mean, Stanford University is already doing human trials, and now they're marketing this, taking blood from young individuals, voluntary, they say, but putting them into patients with Alzheimer's and bone marrow issues to help them get better. And that is the scary, that's like beyond vampirism. That's like scientific vampires. That's how I look at that.
Well, now Podesta, I have heard that he has ties to this organ trafficking, I guess to call it that.
Well, the ties, this is how the ties work. When people say ties, you have to really understand what those ties are. So John Podesta is on the board of the Center for American Justice. I believe that's the name of it. If it's not, I'm sorry. We'll have to find the right one later for you. We'll put it in. But he's on the board of that. And most of the donors and board of trustees are involved in medical institutions. So that's how these things tie together. You have the people that run the company all of the people that donate the money and make all the decisions about what this company is going to do, why they're doing it, but they're on, you know, art associations, medical institutions. They're presidents of medical institutions. Mayo Clinic has a lot to do with this. And again, we can even talk about the recent suicides, where 2 of those happened actually across the street from a Mayo Clinic.
Yes.
You know, this whole human trafficking, organ trafficking is very important.
Well, I just have this theory, you know, honeybee, and you just have to kind of bear with me on this as I get through this. But I was going through some statistics, and I realized that there are, I think, over 900 abortions done a day. That's 900 young ladies getting this abortion. A lot of them are frightened. They're unsure of their future. They haven't come with parents. They've just had a horrendous experience. Perhaps it was a boyfriend, perhaps not. And there they are at Planned Parenthood. And these welcoming doctors and nurses are so gracious and so kind and so willing to put their arms around these young girls.
Mm-hmm.
Say, you know, I have someone. Do you need a place to stay? Do you need a place to go? I'm just not sure that I believed that Planned Parenthood couldn't be running a side deal with these people. 900 children, young girls, could be pulled into sex trafficking, even if it's only a fourth of those children. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is it possible? Could an employee be bringing these young girls, confiding in them, and drawing them into this sex trafficking? Boy, wouldn't it be easy? Wouldn't it be easy?
Absolutely.
These girls that, not necessarily homeless, but lost, bewildered, don't know what to do next, don't even want to go home.
Right. And that's a lot of the tactic that, you know, people that are running sex trafficking rings, and this is how they recruit. They prey on the weak, right. And they prey on the distraught and the hopeless and helpless. That is the easiest target to do your bidding, especially when they can, you know, demonize the behavior, you know, on top of being there to help them.
Yes, couldn't you just see it? I could just.
They use the abortion against them on some sick level. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you could just see it. I mean, who has access to young girls? They're healthy, they're beautiful, they just got into a bad situation.
Mm-hmm.
Who more vulnerable than that? And who more cunning than that to perceive that?
That's right. And another whole side of this abortion issue, I just found yesterday, there is this company called Honeybee, or Baby Honeybee Hummingbird, or something to that lines. They make jewelry, keepsake jewelry, out of leftover IVF fetuses and parts of the breast milk organs and part of the placenta and things like that. Fine. That's fine. I mean, it's weird. I'm not into that sort of
have in mind.
Keep your bodily fluids in a vial on your chest. I mean, that's weird, but okay. But to take okay, so these IVF failures are dead babies. Right. They're IVF is like in vitro fertilization, where they take the egg outside of the body, they take the sperm outside of the body, and they create an embryo in a petri dish, fundamentally. So, you know, you do like 7 or 8 of those, and your chances of getting 1 or 2 out of that, you know, are the odds. You know what I mean? You have 7 to 10, and 2 will be successful, and you'll have, you know, those babies. But the other ones that die, parents, you know, they're like, do we bury them in the backyard? Do we throw them to the wind, you know, and be like, no, okay, we're going to take these dead baby fetuses and we're going to make them into jewelry. And this company is actually making them. And I thought it was really demonic. It's like worshiping of the dead. And it's even perverted in itself, is that this IVF stuff works the way it does. I mean, it's just, I have such strong feelings about it. And I might be pushing some envelopes here with my faith and my religion. Not even a religion. I mean,
it's just,
I look at my faith as a guide tool to how to be a good person and how to live life. And I have very strong feelings about abortion and about, obviously, you know, in vitro fertilization, because there's a lot of failures. There's a lot of unborn children that are just kind of, you know, and then there's a whole other level of, and I'm not sure if it's conspiracy, but I really haven't done the research. I wish I could, but in, you know, putting this sort of waste fetus stuff into soda products and food, I heard. I mean, it goes crazy, and I haven't really looked into.
Cosmetics is a big deal.
Yeah.
Don't we want to look young? Don't we all want to look young?
Yeah.
Why do we care what's in it if it works?
Right.
So, honeybee, let's talk about Milo.
Milo Yiannopoulos. So there's all this controversy about what Milo meant in his interview. As we know, because of his statements in that interview with Joe Rogan, he was taken off of many speaking engagements and defamed by the media and whatnot. But I want to assure you that there's lots of people that are saying that his talk was cut up and made to look bad. I watched the whole interview in full, and it is very pro, you know, child grooming, sexualization of children is okay. He spoke from, you know, his own experience as a young boy, being groomed by an older man. He doesn't say groomed. He just very much accepts the fact that an older man it comes into a young homosexual boy's life and shows him the ropes, so to speak.
Right. And in many cases, actually, those relationships with older men. This is one of the. This is one of the reasons I hate the left. You know, they have this sort of stupid, you know, one size fits all policing of culture. This sort of arbitrary
Milo.
This arbitrary.
Let him talk. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll be quick. This arbitrary and oppressive idea of consent, which totally destroys, the understanding that many of us have of the complexities and subtleties and complicated nature of many relationships. You know, people are messy and complex, and actually, in the homosexual world, particularly, some of those relationships between younger boys and older men, the sort of coming of age relationships, the relationships in which those older men help those young boys to discover who they are and give them security and safety and provide them with love and a reliable and sort of a rock where they can't speak to their parents. Some of those relationships are
sounds like
of the most
molestation to me. It sounds
like,
like,
you know what?
It sounds like Catholic priest molestation to me.
I don't know that I was ready at 13 to get fucked in the ass by a 28-year-old black drag queen, is what I'm saying. So you can't. The reason these age of consent laws exist is because we have to set some kind of a barometer here.
There are certainly people who are capable of giving consent at a younger age.
Here you are talking about how, look, you know, some of these kids that get diddled by these priests, I mean, it's a good thing for them. They're getting this love. And now they are also getting
You're misunderstanding what pedophilia means. Pedophilia is not a sexual attraction to somebody 13 years old who is sexually mature. Pedophilia is attraction to children who have not reached puberty.
Whether or not you accept it and embrace it as a young child, you're still not a consenting adult. So whatever you have developed in your mind to deal with whatever's going on, it doesn't make it right. And for him to come out and actually promote that and say that I believe in his mind, he feels some sort of guilt, because he was even talking about saying that he was the instigator of these sexual relationships and that he was the one that was seeking out attention from older men, as a young boy. And that reminds me a lot of the rape shame and the victim shame of the argument that a lot of men and women that rape do use against someone that they have victimized. They wanted it. They were dressed that way. They were drunk and they were asking for it. It doesn't make it right. And 100%, especially with children. Children cannot consent. They cannot consent. It doesn't matter whether they're jumping all over you and are lusting after you. You're an adult and you need to understand that children don't have the capability mentally, physically, or emotionally to deal with sexual relationships. And if you do get involved in those sort of relationships, you are abusing the child. You're breaking the law and you're ruining someone's life. And I don't care how many studies that some of these pedophile apologists and pedophile protectors and pedophile advocates want to say that it's good for the kid. They only get upset and traumatized when someone like you is telling them that it's bad. There are way more cases, like 99% fold, that kids grow up without a normal sexual identity. You're going backwards in time. You're looking at yourself as being the attractive little kid, and then you're growing up into this adult. Like, are you not attractive anymore? It's very bad for the mind, and people have to understand that it's abuse. No matter what, it's abuse.
What about, speaking about gay, what about Alefantis? Do you think it's all fake news?
No, not at all. I mean, if you want to look at just the straight facts and not go into the Pizzagate situation, just take a look at the archive of his Instagram. It's highly inappropriate. A family pizza place that invites children on their advertising to come in to a fun place to be with your family. And there's pictures of men in their, bloody underwear, blood on the floor with high heels on. There's bands that are being promoted there, not just at night, not on the secret adult version of Comet Ping Pong. It's on their website. This is on their Facebook page, or Instagram page, portraying bands that have pedophile jokes in them.
Anyway, here we are together, and you all are very grateful that you are below a Subway sandwich shop.
Yes!
And Jerry is known to hang out down here. He likes the world sounds. Tamales.
And little boys. And children.
I think that was his manager.
No.
We all have preferences. Anyway.
Not just symbols. I mean, they're talking about little boys. It's highly inappropriate. All of the names that they're calling these babies, like hotards and chicken lovers. I mean, these aren't words that they just made up. These are words that pedophiles use to talk about kids. So do I believe it? Absolutely, because I looked at it myself. You could look at it yourself. So anybody that denies that Pizzagate, that there's something to Pizzagate, you want to go to the Wikipedia and get your information there, good luck to you. It's a reality, and people need to look into it themselves. That's why I always say, do your own research. Do your own research.
Now, Honeybee, do you think there's a cover-up with Pizzagate, Pedogate?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that, Pedogate is also something that I believe is starting to get discredited, but absolutely with Pizzagate, which is specifically Comet Ping Pong, the understanding of the code words, that in and of itself is a very specific kind of case regarding James Alefantis, Podesta emails, the WikiLeaks, Clinton's, involvement in all of that. Pedogate in itself is like the larger blanket of it all. It's the cover up of pedophilia in our government. So anytime you mention Pizzagate, you're getting the tinfoil hat, you're getting the crazy psyop. This is a psyop to confuse everybody. And then you have the actual psyops going on, like the Edgar Madison Welch shooting.
We were able to talk to the owner of the restaurant tonight. He says these social media attacks that may have led to this incident need to stop. This video shows the arrest of a North Carolina man accused of walking into Comet Ping Pong in Northwest D.C. armed with an assault-style rifle. Now, police say he wanted to self-investigate Pizzagate. That's a fictitious online conspiracy theory about the restaurant.
What happened today demonstrates that promoting false and reckless conspiracy theories do come with consequences.
Which, if you really looked into it and saw the number of news articles relating to this, there's never a consistent story of what actually happened. There was no shooting. There was one gunshot. There was a gunshot to the floor. There was a gunshot to the wall. There was, you know, people inside the building, and then there was no people inside the building. There's just such a huge red flag of this being a false flag. He has an IMDb page. He's an actor. You know, this is using your brains, guys. Like, okay, you can think for yourself. The MSM does not think that you're smart. And unfortunately, most people are just willing to accept that. You know, it's hard to do research. It's hard, not physically, but mentally. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to see the truth. It's not nice stuff that we're seeing. It's not nice that I find out that there may be a relation between John Podesta and one of the senior analysts with top security clearance at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, whose parents work at the Washington Post.
Hey, everybody. I wanted to just let you know that John Podesta is now a columnist at the Washington Post. He has now joined the fake news media, fake stream media, to help and destroy independent research. Just in his interview the last maybe day or two ago, he blasted independent research, calling it the real fake news, and that the MSM is reality. I'm sorry, John Podesta, you do not live in reality, and I believe that you are a child molesting, child torturing, child murdering, child raping, sick, sick man. Now, I want to bring it back to a couple days ago when I posted my last video about the VidMe investigation that I did. I didn't want to poke around too much on a specific person because I wasn't quite sure what I was going to be finding. And I don't like to report anything unless I have some evidence. So I'm going to take it back here to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. That's right. I have my suspicions about this agency. I feel that they make it very easy for people to get kids, to exploit, abuse, kidnap, whatever they want to do. I'm finally realizing that there is a connection to John Podesta and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And I'm going to show you right now. So if you remember, I was showing you one of the people that worked there was Sherelle McLeod. She was going to be the person working with me on the VidMe case. And I was a little tickled to see Brian Podesta right below. Okay. So Brian Podesta works in Virginia on the first floor at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. All right. So let's go look at Brian. Okay. I just want to show you how seriously connected this gentleman is to the government, and just because he works at a nonprofit does not mean that this gentleman does not have the highest security clearance that the government can give to anybody. So let's just check that out right now. So Brian Podesta, as you can see here, he is a senior analyst at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and he has top secret clearance. He's had this clearance since he was around 20 years old. Okay, he started with this clearance in 2000. All right. He was troubleshooting satellites and working for Verizon
They hired him and somebody had to sponsor him. You don't apply for top secret clearance. You have to be given it by somebody else. Okay, so that means a sponsor has to step in and say, okay, we're going to sponsor him to be your top secret person at this job. And it costs $30,000 plus to do that. And you take it with you for the rest of your career, as long as someone keeps sponsoring you once you move around. So we're going to go here. He started doing the United States Naval Reserves. There's no end date on that, so he's still a reserve. He did a little accounting for the reserves, still with his top secret. Okay. And now we're going to go to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. All right. So he has top secret clearance here as well. He also has experience in SATCOM, which is like a geolocation program. It's probably very useful in locating people using telephone, computer, whatever, radio. I mean, who knows what this guy is capable of doing with the kind of clearance he has. So let's take a look at what that clearance entails. For national security or intelligence jobs in the federal government, you usually need some level of security clearance. Among the highest levels is top secret, abbreviated TS. Additional clearances are required for TS cleared personnel to work on certain highly sensitive programs, known as special access programs. The most common of these is TS SCI, which stands for TS Sensitive Compartmented Information, also known as code word information. You cannot apply for TS SCI clearance yourself. Instead, you must be sponsored by a potential employer that wants to hire you for a job that requires you to have this kind of clearance. All right, so you have to take a polygraph test, you have to go through tons of very uncomfortable and awkward questioning, and tons of paperwork. And then someone's got to, again, foot the bill of $30,000 to get you in there. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at Brian Podesta's My Life profile here. You can see he lives in Gainesville, Virginia. All right. And not too much information about him. He's married, has kids. But we do have a photo here. So I'm going to go check him out on Facebook. And we can see this is the same picture as on his My Life. All right, so we can definitely say that this is the Brian Podesta we're looking for. So let's click on him. All right, Brian Podesta. So the way I look for friends and family is I'll go to their friends list. Brian has his friends list private. Okay. Now, Brian, to me, is a public official. Granted, he works at the nonprofit, non-government agency. He has top secret clearance and is in the military reserves. I am considering him a public official, and I have no problem with reporting on him publicly. And I feel confident about that. So let's go a little bit deeper here. So we're going to check out his pictures. This is where we find family and friends. If you can't open a friends list, just start looking at the pictures and you'll find comments and likes and things like that. So we don't have to go through many. All right, so we got Jane Podesta here. Let's go through a couple more. All right, and here's another one. So we've got Don, okay? And we've got Jane. Jane Podesta. All right, not much on her page. She doesn't show a friends list. All we can see is sort of a photo of her and her, I'm assuming her husband. All right. So let's check out that other guy. All right, Don. All right, Don. Don is the daddy. Don is Brian's dad. Let's go look at some photos. It's a nice family, nice nature. And look what we have here. We have Jane, Brian, and PJ, his brother, at a White House lawn party in the early 90s with Bill Clinton. A photo from the 90s was somehow tucked away in one of our bookshelves. Visit to some party on the White House lawn when Jane Podesta and I still had 2 of our 3 kids at home. Where does the time go? Now I want you to take a look at this fella here, PJ. And I want you to take a look here at Podesta. Do you not see a resemblance there? Because I certainly do. These things are difficult to swallow. And I think that Pizzagate, now that it's got its own wiki page, now they're just adding flames to the fire. Now on the Pizzagate wiki page, they liken it to the Satanic Panic in the 80s, comparing it to the McMartin preschool case. If you look up satanic ritual abuse, they put in Pizzagate in part of their definition. Also on the Pizzagate wiki, they throw in the Seth Rich conspiracy. So they're just trying to lump in all of these things that are blatant cover-ups, psyops, and either disinformation or actual murders that have been covered up to confuse people into thinking that people that have done the research and look at this stuff and see evidence and send evidence to the authorities. Do you know how many times I've been in contact with the FBI? We're not just sitting here like making videos and hoping that everybody, will subscribe to their channel or my channel or give me a Patreon donation. Like I've talked to the police, I write reports.
Are they interested? Do they want to listen to you?
No. I call and I try to get updates. Once you send a report, you're out of the loop, and it's actually, you're trying to impede on an investigation at that point if you ask for any details of your own report that you've filed. So it's very difficult to do the right thing while you're trying to do the right thing. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, trying to be upfront and honest. But now let me go back to Pizzagate there for a minute. Do you really think that there's something going on with this Pegasus Museum?
So at the last DC event that I attended a few weeks ago, we went on a trip to Pegasus Museum, and the energy on the street is creepy anyway. It's very quiet, and there were children in the background like screaming and playing. It just was very eerie. I mean, I don't think anything was happening. They were laughing and playing, but it just was eerie just going down the street. And there was about 5 or 6 of us that were there at dusk. So we come to a few different buildings. Now, if you know anything about DC neighborhoods, they're really tight. They're like almost like alleyways that are actual neighborhoods. So, one car would fit down this road, and like all the houses are connected by some way, by a garage in the middle, and then there's gates that go all the way down, lots of gated off houses and whatnot. So it is a little weird. When we got to Pegasus Museum, we found some really disturbing stuff. We found a child's infant playmat box in the trash. we found a DSL wire hanging out from the window all the way down to like underneath this truck that was parked in front of the building. Inside the truck were like deer or some sort of larger animal skull. Could have been a dog. There were 2 of them in there, sitting there in the trunk of this truck. Just like very, very weird stuff. We were kind of circling the property, trying to get some new stuff. We had noticed that since our friend Ryan Alexander, since his trip there, they had put in a shower on top of the building, like a shower hose with like knobs and things like that. Next to that, there's like a glass box at the tippity top of the building that overlooks the playground behind it. It's just a very odd place. So we went up and we knocked on the door, and as we were kind of standing there, the cameras, there are these really expensive high-tech cameras on each side of the property, and they're constantly on. We looked at the doors, and there were 3 bolts from the top, middle to the bottom to lock the doors, and you can't even like make a move a little bit. And on top of that kind of security, there's a keypad for a code to put in to open the door. So it's like this intense, and it's this crappy little building that nobody seemed to be there. But I'll tell you, we found out that this building obviously is owned by James Alefantis. The name is right there on the building. There's a building permit. It's expired, but it's still there on the building, and it's owned by James Alefantis. The number matches James Alefantis' phone number. And also, when we were walking away, the cop showed up at the other end of the road. And then when we actually circled around back to our cars, a truck pulled up, looked at us, stopped for a moment when another car pulled in, and then sped off like crazy down the road.
Wow.
And we're just like, okay, like somebody saw us snooping around at Pegasus. They have cameras there, so somebody saw us. So we don't know who it was. Maybe it was James. I don't know. But the disturbing part of this whole story is that that building is a former church. And the church was actually the Moonies cult. And this was a cult that had been going on at this building for many, many, many years. I'm not going to get into too much detail about the Moonies cult because we're going to save that for the doc, but please go look it up. It's there. It's all there. And we know that this is the building that they were at. There's a lot of history in that building.
My gosh. So it certainly doesn't sound like that's quite the museum you'd want to go visit.
No, not at all. And, you know, I think it's very telling that there was a cult in this particular building, and then it moves on to this other cult-like group of people, because I think that's really what it is. I mean, these people do rituals, and I believe they do, you know, things to kids to gain, you know, longer life, power, control, or whatever. Sure. I know that someone was asking about a kill room at the Pegasus Museum. We weren't able to get inside of there. You can only see into the windows at the very, very top. There are no windows. They've cemented off all of the windows around the edges. What Ryan found were pictures of construction that they were digging underneath the building to create something. Some people say that it was probably the kill room. I know the kill room is actually in Bucks Fishing and Camping. That was the picture on Instagram talking about the kill room. That was addressed at the freezer. That's the freezer that's at one of his businesses being called the kill room. But as for what Ryan discovered, the blueprints and possibly, quite possibly, the tunnels that run all the way up from the center of Washington, D.C. throughout the rest of the city. that could be used to transport children, traffic children from, Connecticut Avenue, where, his group of businesses are, to the Capitol building, to the White House, to Pegasus Museum. I mean, there are lots of different avenues here in understanding little bits of information. Like Ryan found the pictures that are connected to, the construction that was going on at Pegasus Museum. That was a huge find. I mean, that was one of the biggest finds since the WikiLeaks came out.
Yeah.
So it was really important that we saw, the connection with James Alefantis. I mean, it's an incredible find. And you can go there and look at it. His name's right on there. We took pictures and video of everything. This is a property that he owns, and we do think that there's weird things going on there. We can't see. We haven't found anything inside there. We can't look, but we're hoping to return there soon and do a little bit more of a deeper investigation.
So Ryan was threatened by Alefantis.
Mm-hmm.
What about you? Any threats coming your way, Honeybee?
So there have been a few, nothing too crazy. So this was actually very coincidental. It happened around the time that Ryan was getting harassed. I was talking to him on Facebook and kind of connecting with him and praying for him. Because as you know, James Alefantis had his phone number and was texting him that he was going to come and find his family. It was very scary. That's the kind of stuff that truthers have to deal with whistleblowers do get killed. Whistleblowers do get harassed and gang stalked and become targeted individuals. I deal with some targeted individuals, on a daily basis. So for me, at that time, I was kind of feeling, invincible. I was making my videos. Nobody was giving me any problems. I had very little trolling on my videos and comments. Most of my comments are supportive. People really want to hear the latest news and what I've found. But I did receive a email on my work email, which is private. I received an email from someone called Pizzagate Deep Throat.
Oh gosh.
And it was very weird how this happened. So this is very creepy. First, I got a phone call from a blocked number, and I didn't answer the phone. And then they called again. So I picked it up and I hung it up because I was getting a little freaked out because I don't answer phone calls from blocked numbers. I just, if you're going to call, I let it go through. You're probably not going to call back. But when a number keeps calling me private like that, I get a little weirded out. So I just kept on hanging up the phone so they couldn't even listen to my voicemail again. Because if you didn't leave a message the first time, then you probably didn't need to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
So about 5 minutes after that, or 10 minutes after that was going on, I get an email in my personal email, and it said, "Are you the honeybee that makes videos about Comet Pizza?" And I'm thinking, I don't really make videos about Comet Ping Pong. I really don't. If you notice, my first videos were about the sex offender registry in Washington, D.C. I didn't really delve into Pizzagate until maybe the last month or so, dealing with Pegasus Museum and a lot of my friends. So it really didn't make any sense. I wasn't making videos about Pizzagate per se, but it did prove Pizzagate in a way. So then I didn't answer, and then a little bit of time went by, probably 15, 20 minutes. I get another email from them that says, "Well, maybe if you won't answer, I'll stop by and pay you and the name of our little one that we have on the weekends here by our pet name that we call her. Not her actual name, but a name that nobody knows." And that was really unnerving to us. And I called my boyfriend. He was working that night. And I'm like, we have a problem here. Somebody knows our personal stuff. There's no way. Granted, I'm sure you could find my work email, no problem, if you really were looking. If you found out the name of my company, found my website, you know what I mean? I don't really talk about the name of it, but I'm sure if you really wanted to find out, you could. But to actually have the name of our daughter and the pet name that we call her, her nickname, I just thought it was really weird that he would know that or she would know that. So that kind of freaked me out for a little while. but other than that, it's just trolls that want to, you know, call you names and use, you know, dirty tricks to, you know, they talk about the way I talk or the way I look or, you know, my weight or whatever, you know what I mean? Just like low down dirty. Doesn't matter. It doesn't bother me. I'm way above that.
Right.
So
what do you think about the UN, the live art program?
So the art at embassies, right? So I had previously done a video about Jeff Koons. So we're just going to move down the board list here. And what do we see here? Jeff Koons? The artist? Have you seen Jeff Koons' work? Why on earth would this guy be on the board of directors for the International Center for Missing and Exploited Children, guys? These kinds of images are eerily familiar. Pedophiles love all things children. They use these images to attract children, to make them feel safe. Not only does Jeff Koons create strange images like this, he also does very strange images like this. Naked children, children and angels with pigs. And right in the smack in the middle of this, right smack in the middle of that exhibit is the infamous golden Michael Jackson with golden monkey. Why would you put a suspected pedophile, okay, in the midst of all of these children, some of which are actually naked? It is beyond me. See him right over here? So let's take a look at some other Jeff Koons work. He has some pornographic work as well. And I just want to show you this. You know, adding sex and fairies and butterflies together. If you know anything about Monarch programming, you'll see this. And this is another example of mixing childlike fairy tale with adult sexual content. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. So I'm going to leave you with that, guys. Why this man who's trying to help the exploitation of children on the board of directors of the International Center for Missing and Exploited Children is making art with naked children. It just seems extremely insane to me. These sorts of high-level, high-power artists, they have a lot of sway. They have a lot of power to travel and to ship things. If you know that there's the Hillary Clinton Foundation connection. What concerns me about Jeff Koons and his involvement in all of these really high-powered, high-level, embassy-connected art programs is his past. If you didn't know, his wife absconded with their child because Jeff Koons had been revealing his genitals to the child, and the mother actually walked in on this at one point. And this is open knowledge, and he has admitted this, but the mother took the child and it left and hasn't returned. So this sort of pedophilic stuff was going on with him. And then if you look at his previous relationship with that model, I mean, that she was very young looking. We don't know, what the history of that is, but the fact that he is on the board of directors for a child foundation and also has connections to these embassy art programs, you have to understand, like, if you know what the federal procurement of art in embassies, they are shipping lines that allow these sorts of members to ship large amounts of whatever are in those shipping containers. They're saying it's art for millions and billions of dollars, you know, unchecked, untaxed, across country lines, you know, in planes, in ships, in submarines. There's contracts for shipping in submarines that we've found without anybody doing any oversight.
Wouldn't that be illegal? Wouldn't
Absolutely.
that be illegal to be shipping? How do they get that type of clearance?
Well, this is a group of people that, like, you have Hillary Clinton, Madeleine Albright, Colin Powell, Condoleezza Rice. Who else is involved in this? These are all donors and people that are on the board of trustees of these organizations. You know, these are people that are still on the board. Even then, now they're still putting money into these programs. And they work with ambassadorships. So you have ambassadors that, you know, say there's an ambassador, like for instance, in Transformer, which is James Alefantis' art program. He has an ambassador from, I believe it's Sweden, that does these sorts of art exchanges, you know, under the radar. It's public, but it's just allowed to take place. So you, in theory, could ship a container of like 50 kids from the United States to, say, you know, England's, you know, for a party at the Buckingham Palace, you know. And we've seen it happen the other way. We've seen the Queen getting in some hot water for trying to ship kids from another country into the kidnapping children. So,
and there's another issue is that I understand that on some of these planes, perhaps all of them, there's refrigeration, which is, people would be wondering listening to this, well, how could they live on these kinds of planes with the heat and so forth? But if they are refrigerated or heated, that would take care of that problem.
Oh yeah, I mean, some of these, the contracts that we're finding on fpds.gov, which is a open source, you know, it looks into tax documents, it looks into connections and contracts within the government and other corporations and businesses. We're finding government contracts where, you know, we say the State Department, they're in charge of this huge project where they're restaurating mattresses in Arabia, you know, and you're wondering, okay, what do mattresses have to do with the State Department and Arabia? Could it be a military operation where they set up in a bunker and they have to refurnish the old mattresses and put new mattresses into the barracks? Or are we setting up, you know, an operation where we're shipping a large amount of people underground or in a submarine? Submarine contracts are huge in the government. We've seen a lot of them. Are we putting bedding in there so we can ship long-term, you know, a group of people to another side of the world? This kind of stuff is really happening, and it's not just speculation. I mean, there are cases of children being trafficked all over the world happening every single day.
Yes.
You know, I was going back to Laura Silsby because that is not the only case of human trafficking, nor is it the only case that she'd ever been convicted of. This is the second time it happened to her. But trafficking is such a large scale. It's not just, you know, just peering its head in America. I think it's great that the president is starting to actually crack down and people are getting arrested for this kind of stuff. But this has been a long time operation, you know, of trafficking children.
Yeah. When do you think that this all went into play with the planes and so forth? Obviously, they have the money to have their own planes, their own different facilities to handle the planes coming in, so that it's all done underground.
Yeah. Well, another thing we're looking into is one of these victims that I'm working with, where they live, there is an airport that has contracts with DC and Haiti. and this place is like on the other side of the country, nowhere near DC and nowhere near Haiti, why this small time little, operation is being contracted out to the Air Force and the Department of Homeland Security is just extremely suspect. So you have these smaller, institutions or businesses that get involved in this stuff. It's not just all powerful elite using the Denver airport to do their shipping. You know what I'm saying? This is like, you need these smaller facilities under the radar to do your dirty work. That's how the mob works. That's how, you know what I mean? If you saw Fight Club, that's how that works. Very compartmentalized. You have these little guys that are small business contractors, especially contractors, because, they're kind of like doing stuff pro bono under the table. You know what I mean? You do this for me and I'll do this for you kind of thing.
Sure. So, and you're thinking of shipping art. Where would your art shows be? In Haiti?
Right.
I have I'm sure a lot of well-known artists that live there and they're doing their art shows. I mean, if a person were to even follow that lead, as far as where those planes are going and the hangars that they're bringing their planes into, unloading it, and go from there. I mean, you would think if it's the UN, they'd be going into, London and to Europe, Paris, places like that, where Germany, they would have those kinds of people that would want to see that type of art.
Right.
But it doesn't sound like this is where they're actually going. And that's the frightening thing about this, what's on those planes.
That's right. And another angle to look at that is, these really wealthy people that actually live in Haiti, the government officials, the wealthy people. There's a very small handful of very, very wealthy people in Haiti that run everything and have all the money. And the rest of the people that are there are suffering from the aftermath of disaster, financial collapse, this whole Petro-Caribe fiasco. It's been very difficult for Haiti to kind of get a grip. And that's why the Clinton Foundation went swooping in there to take control of the country. I mean, people can say what they want about the Clinton Foundation wanting to be helping people, but really they see a dying animal and they swoop in for the kill. That is how these people work. So any of the interests that are going on down there is with their local government and their presidency. I believe the president now has come to understand how much money the Clintons took from them.
I'm sure.
But I don't think that the Haitian government is without blame for any of this stuff. There is $1 billion donated to just one fund not related to the Clinton Foundation that was supposed to go to Haiti, but only like 30% of it actually went to Haiti. There's actually, I really wish I saved the link. I went to this link, and I think you can look it up. It just put in Google, how much money do foundations really give victims? Kind of look into that, and you'll find this.
Right.
I found this great article, and it just listed all of these different, fundraiser organizations for Haiti, China, Ghana, whatever. And this one was specifically for after the Haiti catastrophe. Every single place, for the exception of like one or two, they were Christian, Catholic organizations. And I'm not saying that the Catholic Church is any better than any of them. It was just so happened to be that these two organizations gave 100% of their proceeds to Haiti directly, but most of them are 30 to 50%. They're not giving that money over to them because they're setting up special interest projects. 5 years from now we'll have finished everything. They're not giving them relief.
Oh.
You know what I mean? And then nobody checks up on them. So say I raised $1 million and I only gave them like 8,000 or 50,000, whatever. then I could make a promise that, okay, well, in the next year, we're going to set up a school. And then the next year after that, we're going to start an irrigation system. And nobody's oversighting this. Nobody's making sure that they're following through with their promises. You know what I'm saying? That's why the Hillary Foundation, the Clinton Foundation got away with taking all that money, because there is nobody doing oversight on these foundations that are raising money. So you got to be really careful about who you donate to.
We're really very sure. That's coming from people who certainly know that.
Mm-hmm.
How much is really given in the philanthropic world for their events. That is
No,
for sure.
I went to Haiti. I went to Haiti after the earthquake. I went there as a 16-year-old on a mission trip to help them learn how to farm on the unfortunate new territory that they were pushed onto. The government did nothing. They were living in shacks with, like, you know what I mean, like soda boxes as their roofs. It was insane. And I was young. Like, I went home, when I got home after that month of being there, I was in complete culture shock. I couldn't believe that people actually suffered to that level.
Do you think that the Clintons will ever pay for what they've done? John Podesta, do you think any of this is going to come down?
Yeah. If I didn't, I probably wouldn't have the strength to go forward and keep doing what I'm doing. So I have to believe that they'll come down at some point.
And, I don't want to forget to touch on your documentary.
This documentary has a lot of different moving parts, and there's going to be a lot of people involved in what's going on here. My contribution to this documentary is the victims that I've been able to touch base with, a lot of that in-depth research that I've done on, the Brian Podesta situation, on working with Liberty columnists. We went to Pegasus Museum together, and we're doing all this document sharing, and I'm working with another woman in Georgia who's anonymous, but she's part of our research team, just digging through contracts and forms and evidence, like real evidence, not speculative stuff. We want this documentary to be meaty and have some substance with fact. And that's what really grabs people, is when you can be like, here, this is it right here. And this is where you can find it. You go to this place, go to this website, or you go to this institution, and this is how you look up the information. We want to walk people through how to find out this information, because we don't want people to be in the dark anymore, and we don't want people to be spoon-fed by the mainstream media, because that's what's happening. They're getting the compartmentalized, twisted spin of what the people in power want you to think, and not the actual truth of what's going on.
Yeah, I think people need to hear, but I think we need to learn how to do it, how to research, how to find this out on our own. And my last question is, when you think of everything you shared with us, how does your immediate family feel about all of this, Honeybee? I'm sure your significant other is wondering about all this.
Well, my boyfriend is very, very supportive, and he went with me to DC, and he passed out flyers at the Boston Pedogate rally. I mean, he was, an amazing part of that. Actually, I don't think we could have done a lot of outreach without my boyfriend, literally with a backpack on, running around, passing out thousands and thousands of pamphlets on Pedogate and Pizzagate. But, as for my family and my support system, they already know me. They know that this is kind of something I've been always interested in. It's the truth. And I get a lot of support, especially from my mom. My mom, she's always saying she's at home knitting my cape. And
I bet she worries about you, though.
She does worry about me, and she knows me very, very well. And sometimes when I'm really into something heavy, like that I could possibly get in trouble for putting out there. I do get videos taken down all of the time. I find out some heavy information, and I'm worried. My mom has the spidey sense, and she'll call me, and I won't answer because I know she wants to know exactly what's going on. You know what I mean? Yeah. When we talk, she's like, I know what you're doing, and she watches my videos. You know what I mean? She's taking it slow. She's taking it slow. She's very much awakened. You know, she'll call me and be like, I saw an all-seeing eye on CNN. Like, why are they putting triangles on CNN? What is this craziness? I'm seeing it everywhere now. So she's just kind of putting her feet in the water, but she's definitely keeping her eyes open, and she respects what I'm doing, and she supports me 100%. My father, I mean, he is just amazing. He'll call me and say, this is so you. I've always known you were going to come out there and really make a difference in this world, and you do it all the time. And they're just very supportive. My brother and sister, very supportive of what I'm doing. You know, very loving family, very close. And yeah, if they're watching, I love you guys.
I'm sure they will be. Well, Honeybee, I have enjoyed this so much, and I thank you for opening up to us, to our audience, so that we can share a part of your world that is, oh, you're like right, you should be wearing your cape. You're telling your mother to make that cape for you because you are special, and there's not too many people out there that can commit to uncovering such filth that I can't even stand to think about. You feel like you need a shower after you read some of this.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Honeybee, just really God bless you, keep you safe.
Thank you.
I love what you're doing, and I know we just want to see more good stuff, more stuff from you, and you've helped us learn a lot today, and I think learning is part of the blinders coming off our eyes. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not just how can I do it, but do I really want to do it, and can I be like you, and can I really make a difference? And I mean, you make it sound effortless, and I know it's not. I know it's not.
Well, it takes a team. And, you know, if anyone that's listening to this program today wants to get involved, you know, even on an anonymous level, just find me on Twitter or write me a message, you know, on Facebook, or I'm more active on Twitter than anywhere, really. So connect with me there. And if you need some advice or you need to find the right group of people to get you started, I will help you do that. I'm very, very verbal. You know, I don't like ignore emails. I'm very busy. I'll get to you, but I'm very available and approachable. So if you want to get started, just get in touch with me.
Good. Well, let us know how best that we can keep helping in any way we can with you, Honeybee. You know, share with us if you've got something that you want spread or whatever. We're here to help you and in your journey, because I feel it's important.
Thank you. And if you want to see some of my deleted videos, I would definitely suggest that you go to www.bitchute.com/channel/honeybee. That is where we use BitTorrent technology to pull my videos or upload videos so that they stay on the internet forever. They're very much a proponent of free speech. It's bitchute.com, and I'm there as the Honeybee. So if you want to see the Brian Podesta video or the Ohio massacre video that they took down within hours of me putting it up, some really important stuff that, you know, YouTube, Google, just, they couldn't handle it. They don't want the truth coming out. They don't like me speaking the truth. So they attack me all the time. So please go to that platform if you want to check out the videos that you haven't seen. And then, of course, you can find me on YouTube, Steam It, you know, Vote. I'm there all the time as well. As the Honeybee, you can find me on Vote. I do a lot of research where you can look at all the links, and I put it all out there for you. Click on the video, click on the link, click on the document. I put it there for you to see yourself. And so you can recreate the experiment, so to speak, in a scientific way on your own.
Well, thanks again, Honeybee. I loved it, and I'm looking forward to having you back.
Absolutely. You're beautiful and wonderful, and I really appreciate you having me on. It was such a pleasure. Thank you to your team as well. A great, wonderful group of ladies, and I really feel like we could do wonders together. So let's get back in touch again soon and make some stuff happen.
All right. I hope by then you have your cape made. You tell your mother.
I'll tell Mom to get on top of that.
That's right. You tell her I said so. Okay. Thanks, Honeybee.
Take care.